Debuting in Medarot 7, this frilled lizard type is a master of catching his foe off guard. It is FLL00 Jirasu-Jidasu, with the kit of triple flash, biped legs, and the leg ability of Abscond, which passively buffs the cooldown of all equipped parts just by equipping the leg. Now, as a model that's been around in Medarot S since its very launch date back in 2020, Jirasu-Jidasu is one of those models that at first glance honestly doesn't look like much, and he is rather unimposing, kind of papery in terms of armor, and not much to see at first glance. But with consistent and ever-changing tides of competitive meta, this frilled lizard type actually may see a lot of possible viability just yet. Flash is a melee skill that inflicts a negative ailment on the target if you can catch them in their heat phase. The best way I like to describe Flash, if you manage to outrun them, is that it's basically Deathlock light, as if you catch a foe in their heat phase, it automatically cancels their next incoming action going to the line, forcing them to begin their cooldown from wherever you catch them. And in addition to this, until their next turn is complete, they are also unable to dodge or defend against any incoming attacks until they finish their next turn, upon which the effect essentially wears off and the enemy can shake off the catch in being caught off guard. Now, in terms of overall viability, as a triple ailment user, Jirasu-Jidasu may not bring a whole lot to the table, but Flash is something that actually is seen very, very commonly in a lot of competitive meta teams, especially in online PvP that tend to pair this off with something like Sujigiri, which deals a lot of immense damage if you catch your foe in the back. When it comes to the armor department, like I said, he is kind of papery in there too in terms of what he offers, with a head HP of about 3,200, arms about 2,900 each, and his legs at just shy of 3,100. He's not bad per se, but a good hit or two will absolutely knock him out. And even though his base power is rather nominal across all three parts, given that he is using a negative ailment, power really isn't anything he has to bother with or worry about. Its leg stats honestly are kind of in that niche little area though, where they're not bad, but also not terrible either. His mobility packing at about 652 isn't bad, but like I said, not great either, because he's definitely going to be kind of cusping the very bottom line of where you want a biped leg to be, and still maintain some sort of competitive edge. A melee resist of 1169 isn't too shabby though, as this does mean that this frilled lizard type can't hold his own up close and personal moderately well. A shoot resist of 639 is definitely not great though, as this does mean that he will be taking a pretty significant amount of punish damage from shooting skills just because he has very little immunity to them. And an evade of just barely 802 isn't really all that great either, as this does mean that he will be struggling to dodge or graze a lot of even low success attacks to keep himself as healthy as possible. All this being said though, as a pure set score, I still do have to rate Jirasu-Jidasu a very solid 5.5 out of 10, and kind of a middle of the road kind of bot. Not terrible, but also not super great either. While Flash is a very invaluable element to use in competitive teams, having it on all three skills is kind of redundant, and it does make using him rather tricky. And this especially does come into light if anyone on the opposing team is using Stat Cleanse, of which the entire reason he would be there on the team to begin with is now effectively invalidated. Plus, Abscond is a fair ability to have, but a passive boost to cool is definitely not the greatest when it comes to other possible abilities he could make use of. As mixed parts though, I do have to rate him notably higher at a 6.5 out of 10, and in some cases arguments might even be made for a 7. Primarily for the fact that Flash, like I've mentioned, is a very invaluable skill in competitive meta. That ability to be able to catch a foe off guard and force them into automatic cooldown lines up for a very good follow-up for someone to come behind him with a nuke skill. Especially because, once again, Flash inflicts no dodge and no defend, guaranteeing that all hits land, and all hits are guaranteed to be as painful as possible as critical hits.